appeals process or?
Yes, because it was re-advertised. So we
Okay.
have to do it just like before.
Okay.
And Dan's gonna read the public hearing notice.
Appeals process?
Very good.
Go for it, Dan.
No, I don't, I'm gonna tell you right now, I forgot my glasses.
No, I
I really don't even have
Dan-
mine. I've been
Dan-
taking pictures of things and zooming in on. them.
Dan Egner.
I was gonna say.
Stand down, Dan.
I'm over here going.
The other Dan. Notice is hereby given that the Village of Homer Zoning Board of Appeals will meet in person at the Town Hall in Homer, 31 North Main Street on May 11th at 6:30 PM to consider the following pursuant to the current Village of Homer Code of Ordinances. Appeal number 492, applicant property owner, Family Health Network. Property address 85 Southwest Street, tax patent number 76.32-01-06.000, zoning district B3, code reference article 3, 228-23. Variance requested, zoning area variance to allow for new signage on Route 281. Above application is open to inspection of the village offices. We encourage you to email, call 607-749-3322, or snail mail all of your communication needs before said ZBA meeting. So said Tanya DeGenero, village treasurer.
The copy's been placed on file for the record.
That is correct.
Okay, so do we start off with explanation by the applicant, John?
Yes,
So I don't know where, I wasn't here in the last meeting, it was actually Todd that came, so I'm gonna start like it's completely.
We probably should.
Yeah.
We've got two new members that haven't heard this,
Okay,
any part of this yet.
so I don't know if you have any renderings or not.
We do.
You
We
do?
do.
I'll give you another one just so we can reference them. So that's the proposed sign. It's proposed to go right in front of the building. It's gonna be a combination sign, illuminated header cabinet on top with an LED digital display underneath. The plan is to use the sign, to communicate, anything that, medical related that FHM does, and that's what the whole plan. They do have a sign in another one of their locations, and they plan to run it the exact same way. And it's gonna be an entrance sign for them. Right now, they have no entrance sign at all. They do have signs on the building, but the main purpose is to really get them identified from the road.
Is it? Is it the same sign? Is it essentially the same LED, everything as the other location?
It is the exact same sign. The only difference is it's higher in the air. Same scale, same size, same everything. And we're actually going in front of that board to get that sign raised up to the same height as this particular sign here right now, as we speak. So they will be identical signs.
Is that everything that you had?
Yeah,
Because
if
then
you
we
have
can-
any questions?
Yeah, we can move on to the questions from anybody on the board that wanted to ask them any questions.
So when they were here last, they spoke of the sign display. What exactly is gonna be displayed on there, and what are your plans with messaging throughout the day? How is that?
So, I mean, it's gonna be used just like their other location. It's more of like an information board for their business. It's totally an on-premise business sign. It is not an off-premise. They're not advertising any other businesses, anything else. It's just gonna be used specifically for them, for their type of advertising, whether it's their doctor's hours, whether it's their services that they provide. A lot of the COVID, information that's out there, is really important. So it basically, even though they're a medical facility, they're using it as a business sign for the medical facility. That's what they're looking for.
And are those messages gonna change throughout the day, or are they gonna remain just on there for the day, or how's that?
I mean, I don't know exactly how they're going to run it, but yeah, the intention is obviously to change the message. That's why you get a board like that. That has the ability to change it as much or as little as you want. It's probably gonna run it very similar to the way they're running their other board down the road. I mean, they're not a retail business, so they're not gonna be having a lot of flashy, that type of advertising, more of a text message style board. But obviously they like the colors work, it draws attention to it, but it's not a retail store location, so it's gonna be run differently than a lot of, you know, these style signs, like a car wash down in Cortland. I mean, it's gonna be run differently from that. They don't have the same type of messages. But yes, to answer your question, it will change throughout the day.
Why do you feel that you need to raise the sign that's already in place?
So the one that's in place right
'Cause
now.
I see it fine.
It's down in a ditch. And if you look up and down the road there, every sign is 20 foot plus on the road, and they got their sign, it's like 6 foot above the top of the ground. And it's because of the location that they're at, it's set farther back off the road than all of the other signs along the roadway. So when they have cars parked in the driveway, or if cars are coming from the other directions, it completely blocks their sign. The same thing if you're coming from the south, there's the little carpet store there in the corner. He's got parking spots all along, and his sign is right on the intersection, which just completely blocks their signage. So that's the reason why they're looking to go higher with it.
Okay, well, I've always been able to see it without any problem.
Ruth, that's actually the example sign. So that's outside of the village. That's not what we're considering.
No, I know,
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm tying this in with this one.
Understood. Yep.
Because there's lots of open space where this one is going to go.
Right.
So again, why?
So
for
the
height?
theory to putting the
I
sign
mean,
up,
there's just land there.
yeah, the theory to putting the sign up a little bit higher is a couple different reasons. One is you get visibility underneath the sign, whether you're coming in and out of the driveway, it won't hinder any traffic at all. You're right, this is far off the road. This is 35 foot plus off the road. So it really doesn't really apply to that, but it's no different than like the Burn Dairy sign that's on the road. Although those signs are considerably larger than what this is gonna be, but it's that same concept. You get it up high, you have less interference from other cars coming from different directions and things like that. Mainly a preference thing. But that type of sign, that's the typical standard height for something like that, especially when you're running an LED, a message type board, you know.
So this sign will, I mean, when you see the sign down in Cortland, that's specific to that unit.
Yes,
So this is gonna represent the entire network?
I
the
believe so. I
messaging?
mean, I would assume that is the intention of it. They're representing the brand, what they do. You know, so I mean, it's gonna represent all of their locations, I guess, if you would call it that. It's representing their brand, what they do. And that's their main home offices. So that's, you know, when they advertise, you know, Family Health Network, I'm sure it's affecting all of them. But it is an on-premise sign. They're not doing any type of off-premise advertising. They're not advertising for other businesses. They're not doing any of that. It's just strictly for them to use for themselves.
Okay.
And why do they need to have a lighted sign versus just a regular, or an LED sign versus just a regular sign that they can put messages on throughout the day, you know?
I mean,
Change it.
the old style changeable letter signs are pretty much obsolete. I think it's just as technology moves forward. I mean, we rarely even make them anymore, if we make them at all. I think the whole trend of technology is going towards these LED signs, not just here, but everywhere. We're installing 2 a month on average, and that old school style of walk out in the snow and take your letter and you put it up and make messages, it's just so obsolete, you know, to today's technology. You don't even see fire departments. Fire departments are our biggest customer now, and we don't even see them doing it. You know, we have
Well, ours
schools.
does.
Believe it or not, so business signs the last couple of years have been really hot. That's been the driver of LED technology. With there's so much money out there, government money and grant money for fire departments, we are just inundated. It's like, seems like everything we're doing is schools, fire departments, and municipalities are buying these signs. In business, you know, with interest rates and everything, it's actually the business is trending away from businesses and going more towards those, because they are a big information board, and the federal government's giving out a ton of money. They call it the SAFER grant to fire departments, so that the fire departments can communicate with the public, whether there's an emergency, whether they want members, and they're getting a ton of money for it. That's something you should consider at the fire department, because there's a lot of money out there.
think, yeah, do you guys have?
I think it's a good idea, so. I'm okay with it raising it up. Just go around it.
Well, we can move on to the next section here. So we'll move on to the decision meeting. Just us talking.
You'll have to close your public hearing.
Oh, all right.
Ask if there's anyone from the public to speak.
Anyone?
I
Public?
assume you don't have-
Pat would like to speak, John.
Yeah. The sign that you're putting up, the digital sign, is it exactly the same style of sign as whatever you measure by pixels or light bulbs?
No,
Or
it is not. So it's the same size sign,
Mhm.
except the sign that is at the other location is 11 years old.
Mhm.
It's considered a 19 mm size.
Mhm.
This one here is a 6 mm. The smaller the number, the higher the resolution. So where you're down the road there, you look at it, it's pixelated, it's a little bit hard to read, but that was the generation 10 years ago, 11 years ago. This will be almost crystal clear. It will be hard pressed for most people to look at this and know it's not just an illuminated sign. Just like an illuminated panel sign, the resolution is that clear on the sign.
And you can control how often it changes messages?
Yeah, they're completely controllable. The brightness is controllable, as well as the messages. You can change them every 8 seconds, every hour, every 2 hours, whatever it may be. And then you have unlimited messages that you can program to the sign. So it can run out months if you want it to, you know.
Does it automatically dim when it gets dark out, or does it have to be manually?
No, so it's actually got 2 dimming controls on it. It works off the atomic clock is one of them. So at sunset, it's gonna automatically dim down, but it also has a photo cell on it. So if you get a really overcast, cloudy, rainy day, it's gonna automatically dim the sign down. That's something that I call, every sign I sell, I call responsible sign ownership. The last thing you wanna do is blind somebody coming down the road. Not only are you gonna upset them, but you're gonna upset your customer base. So we always, right out of the box, tell our customers to always keep the signs dimmer than industry standard or DOT standard, I should say, which is really bright. I think it's too bright. So we always dim them down 20-30% when we give them to the customer, and then it's up to them on what they feel works for their location. But in this location here, there's not a lot of lights. It probably at that 20-30% dimming would be absolutely fine for that area. They don't need to run this thing as hot as it can go, that's for sure. But they are fully controllable.
The display will be shut off at 10 p.m., come back on, say, no, it's not running all night. Blinding people or distracting them at night.
We've been having some customers do what, especially when they're like on the onset of a residential neighborhood. They go to a static message at night. That is something you might want to consider too. It just goes to a steady message and it'll stay that way for the whole night. And then come the morning again, then it goes back to like a motion or a changing type message. So
I like
they're fully programmable. I mean, that's just
I like
something
his idea better.
but we do see that a lot. You know, anytime you got a house next to your business or something like that, that's the last thing you want to do is upset the person in the house, you know.
Okay.
Just one other question. The color of the light, is it gonna be the lime green like they have now? Or is it gonna be a red, white, and blue, or
The sign itself,
the message?
the message itself, they can program it any way they want. They can do any color that they want, any message that they want anyway. There's certain colors that work and certain colors that don't work. And that goes along with the design, you know, how they're designing it. But my experience, the plainer, the easier it is to read.
Yes.
And I think most people that do own these signs, they might out of the box try something really fancy. In the end, they always go back to the plain text because you can see it farther away. It's more impactful running it that way than it is trying to run it, you know, a different
Especially if
way.
you're driving by.
Yeah, you can only view it for 3, maybe 5 seconds on that road. So the plainer it is, the easier it is to read, the more impact they're gonna get. You know, the more money they're gonna get off of the
Yeah,
sign.
that's why I think the present one works, because it is those particular colors.
Yeah,
I always see it and I always check out whatever message.
yeah.
Another reason for the smaller,
Resolution.
yes, the resolution. We can only fit so many words on that sign down there, and sometimes it's a challenge to
Yeah,
make the message work.
Yeah, because the
It
resolution
makes
is.
you more analytical.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The message on the other board, because the resolution is so low, you have to have big letters in order to do that. The new board, I mean, you can have 3-inch text and you'll be able to read it clear as day, just because the resolution is that much higher now. Technology's going that way.
So the control for this thing is gonna be in their building someplace, controlled by one person?
Believe it or not, it can be controlled anywhere. I can control it from my office if I want to.
Wireless.
It's all done cellular network, but yeah, nobody can break into these signs. They're 100% secure. We have them in banks, we have them in casinos. They're just 100% secure. If you don't have the passcode to get in, you're not getting into it. There's no hacking them. There's nothing like that because they're dedicated cell networks. So only that cell can communicate with that sign. So if you don't have the codes for that, you're not getting into it.
I don't think I've seen anything in here about the brightness of it. What's the luminance of it?
So these are running, they consider them nits, if anyone even knows what a nit is. So during the day, full brightness would be 7,000 nits.
Okay,
At night would be 500 nits. We tell everybody run it at night about 300. And then during the day, you'll drop it about 20%. So it'll be like 6,000, 5,500.
so it can get pretty bright.
Yeah, you can make it bright. It's like any LED technology. It's brighter when you first get it. 5 years, 7 years, 8 years down the road, it dims itself
You'll notice the
down.
difference.
And then you might want to be running a higher nit at that point in time, but right out of the box, you don't need that. They're plenty bright enough to see.
Is that something you get paid to help control?
No, we can. Typically, they have their own
You're
marketing
training
department.
somebody over there to do it?
Yeah, they do it now. They do a good job at it. And like I said, they're self-controlling.
Right.
They drive by it every day. They know if it's too bright or not too bright. So they kind of self-control, self-manage the sign. We rarely have a complaint ever from a sign. And if we ever do, it's usually when it's brand new, the first time they've seen
Yes.
one in the area.
It's 35 foot back.
Yeah, this is so far off the road, I can't ever foresee anybody even having any concerns with it. And believe it or not, LED doesn't project the light. It's kind of misconception that LEDs like shine a light out. It actually doesn't do that. The light's glowing there, but it's not projecting like a street light would project your light onto something. So it's a little bit of a misconception that it's not blinding because it's shining the light at you. It's just because it's bright.
It's clear.
Yes.
You can read.
Yeah, exactly. But they're very workable, and I'm sure Family Health Network, if anyone had any issues, they're gonna address the issues. They're a good, they've been around a long time. They understand how it works.
Really?
Well, thank you, John, for catching me there. There was some good discussion that came at the end there. So I'll go to last call. Is there anyone else that has anything that they'd like to say in the public discussion? Do we make a motion to get out of the public hearing?
You just closed the public hearing.
All right, this time we're gonna close the public hearing. So now we're entering the decision meeting where board talks and discusses kind of the points. I will bring up kind of, you guys weren't on the last meeting, but we discussed kind of the only other.
Ask Dante if a balancing test is required.
Hi, Joan. I can answer your question if the chair's okay with that.
Yep.
That's what I said, yeah.
Yep. So there's a couple of provisions here that I don't know how caught up the new board members are. But I think Adam was just about to kind of explain where we are as far as the zoning district we're in, the particular code provision that treats this new zoning district a little bit differently, and then the tests needed for the planning board, because every sign in the village needs to be permitted, and that permitting process runs through the code officer. If he denies the permit, then it lands in the planning board to make a determination. I don't know if you guys had particular chance to look at sort of the authority for you guys to do this, which is found in, what is this, 228-56 subsection sign permit. But in this particular instance, you guys are going to be doing a couple of different things. You're going to be making a determination under seeker, which is an easy one in this case. And then you'll be going into a test which Adam is pretty familiar with because we've done a few of those together. But it's the test for a particular type of variance that you'll consider 4 different factors for. And I can help you run through that if you want to, but Adam's done it a few times, and hopefully you guys have the actual test there in front of you. If not, I could send it.
I do, I have it.
And Joan has it. So you're going to be doing kind of a couple things with this application. The seeker thing is just a determination in this case, but sometimes it'll be more elaborate. But then the test that Adam has and Joan has will be the test that you're running through to kind of consider the different factors that the trustees have given to the Board of Appeals when they consider a variance application. So it's that sort of part of the meeting where you're going to be discussing the different provisions of that test and how they apply to the specific applicant. Is that okay? Is that enough?
Yep. thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
Yep, so Dante was kind of saying that they're in kind of a new zone, this like a new business district, and it's not inside of the code book. So that there's no provisions for what's allowed in that. And so it defaults back to an R1, which is a residential district, which is probably the most restrictive zoning in the village. So that's how we're viewing this. I think that they're in the process of updating the zoning book that would update those kind of things. We also have a case that our current zoning is old enough that there isn't really anything that discusses LED signs or changing signs or anything like that.
If they read the report from county planning, that would explain what you're talking about.
Which leads me with a question. Why should we proceed with a decision before the update's made?
That's a concern of mine too. To make.
I happen to support this.
Yeah, yep,
But I don't like the idea of making a decision before the update has taken place.
yep. So that's a concern of mine as well. To change the rules by zoning, I think could be a very dangerous thing.
Yes.
We could end up doing that.
Dante, do we do the short form first?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a good place that Adam's kind of getting the new board members up to speed because we're kind of throwing them into the fire on the first one. This one's a little bit more complicated. But you will need to make a determination under seeker because this is an easy one. It'll be perfunctory. So in my opinion, I don't believe the short form is needed for this particular case. It's pretty clear that this is going to be a type 2 action. But
Okay.
I'll defer to
I'll enter that in the minutes.
I'll defer to the board to make that determination, but because it's pretty clear it's not going to have a huge impact on land use or the environment, and it's specifically listed there as one of those cases. That'll be the first thing they consider once they get to the actual determination phase of the discussion.
They're talking about the environmental impact. Sometimes it's a big thing. You have to go through form and stuff. We can determine that we deem this type 2 action means that there's not environmental impact. That's not a concern.
But you still go ahead and do that regardless of whether or not you're going to approve it.
Yes, yep, yes. So that the environmental impact is one step we have to take. We got to go through the balancing test where we ask these 5 questions that are meant to say the impacts this will have in the neighborhood. With an area or a bulk variance that we're considering for this, you can say yes or no to those questions, and it doesn't mean that you're going to deny the application. If you say no to some of those, you can still grant the variance. There's another type of variance, or use variance, which is more strict, and I don't believe you're allowed to. If you answer no to any of those balancing test questions, then the variances fail. So this is a more lax type of variance.
Would you like me to read the secret statement you usually put in the minutes?
Sure, please.
Well, it's under 6 NYCRR, part 617.5, C 10, 12, or 13 of the State Environmental Quality Review Law. The proposed action is a type 2 action and is determined not to have a significant impact on the environment or is otherwise precluded from environmental review under the Environmental Conservation Law, Article 8.
So we just say that we determine it's type 2 action and then the seeker is taken care of.
Is that what you want put in the minutes?
Do we have to vote on it or anything? I just don't know how that works. That's where we're gonna end up. I just don't want to do it the right way.
The other boards I do just put the statement in there. They don't make a motion, but that's up to Dante, how he wants that recorded.
Well, it's up to the chair. And so just to the new members, if you guys have any questions on this or want to kind of go over things with me, I'm always available if you want to just call and schedule a time. This is a little bit of a complicated process, this particular application, but the components of it are a good first test because they do have it's kind of like a cross multidisciplinary sort of review because we do have unique seeker issues, unique variance issues. But once you guys get settled in and have the materials in front of you and have a chance to go over it, if you guys have questions, I'd be happy to schedule a time individually or both with you to go over how to look at these and any questions you might have just as a aside from this process. But yeah, for type 2 actions, they're considered not to have any environmental impact. There's 3 types of actions. Type 1s that do have a significant environmental impact. Type 2 that don't. Granting a sign permit is one of those easy ones. Area variances for single family houses or 2-family houses. Another one of those examples. And then the majority of the actions that you're going to be considering are unlisted actions. So that's where Joan was referencing the short form, which is a shorter form. It's called an ESF or an environmental, I think short form stands for SF, where you guys will go through a list of criteria and make determinations on each of those specific criteria to determine whether or not further environmental analysis is needed, an environmental hearing, consultations with engineers or stormwater or that sort of thing. So seeker is involved in every single decision you make, sometimes easy and sometimes it's a lot more of a cumbersome or a process.
I usually insert it in the minutes as advised by the attorney.
I'd be happy to take that as the minutes. That'd be great. Thanks, Joan. And Joan is a wonderful resource, as you guys can probably already know. She works on a lot of these boards and has been doing this for a while and knows a lot of the in and outs.
25 years.
25 years. I wasn't going to say a time period, Joan, so.
If it helps at all, I'm ignorant of this specifically, but I'm also retired from the town of Bristol. So I'm familiar with seeker, even though I thank God never had to do it.
Were the new members given the booklet called The Short Course? It's published by New York Planning Federation. They each should have one of those, and it has a good explanation of the secret process in there.
Every meeting you get.
They were just reported last night, Joan, so.
Did they get those booklets?
No, they did not.
We will soon. very soon.
Joan, we have them on hand. They'll get them before the meeting's over.
Okay, because that's really like a Bible for zoning board.
Okay.
Now you want to go ahead with the balancing test, Adam?
Would you have any discussion before we have the balancing test or discussion after the balancing test?
So in this book there, that he's going after for us, what they're gonna ask us or whatever.
The balancing, yeah, it's just the 5 questions, but this has lots of information about different types of variances and stuff like that.
Show your insomnia.
We'll go through those. We'll do that. We'll go through those. I did just want to kind of speak. So the only other LED sign in the village right now is one on the village green. And that was right at the church. And I think Joan dug up the meeting minutes back. It was 2010 back when that was approved. It was kind of a contentious issue. There's a lot of public outcry against it. And so there's just a couple things I wanted to point out from those earlier meetings. So from the July 13, 2010 meeting, At the conclusion of the minutes of discussion, a motion was made by Member Atkins that the Village of Homer Zoning Board of Appeals has determined that a sign with moving pattern of illumination that changes the message regardless of duration is a prohibited sign. The motion was seconded and passed unanimously. They did eventually grant that sign, and kind of some of the provisions that were outlined was that it would be turned off at night. I think the hours here are 11 to 7. And that it wouldn't change the message during the day, which was how they came to that determination.
And I believe that was largely due because of the consensus in the village was that they didn't want flashing signs or changing messages or anything like that. So to allow them to keep that sign, it was one message per day, no changing it, and that's why it got approved at the time.
That was the compromise. And I did talk with Dante that we aren't bound to that decision. But it's certainly, there's nothing in the code book about LED signs, and that's something that was determined by a previous board. You guys want to talk about anything else here? Or?
My concern with it is when you do something like this, and currently we're going from an R1 zoning code, it's opening the door to other businesses saying, well, you let them do it. And if we do that, you're going to be facing a lot of other issues. And that's where my concern is. And allowing something like that in an R1, I think is completely wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. I don't know. Dante, would there be a technical way to look at that? So this is being considered under R1. Would it set any other precedent for an R1 district, or would this still be could this be worded to only apply to a business district?
Yeah, so the issue is it's not a business district. There's a particular code provision. I pulled it up because I wanted to have the site. It's 228-22. So it states if any zone is omitted from this article, or if a new zone is created after enactment of this article, signs permitted in such zones are those permitted in R1 zones. So that's why, this is a business. It is in a district that was created after the enactment of this article. It kind of falls into this R1 district by default. And that is the district that you have to consider. So you have to look at the R1 rules for signs, which this would be a prohibited sign. And then you're going to have to make a determination with the factors that Adam's going to go, or Jones going to go after, to somehow make this sign permittable in that district, make rulings on all of those different criteria on the test that they're going to go over with. So yes, you're not bound by the precedent of that 2010 ruling because it's a distinguishable case. It's a different district, and each applicant has its own distinguishing characteristics, location, the actual physicality of the sign, the electronics behind it, or whatnot. But yeah, setting you are making a determination for a sign in an R1 district that, has been pointed out, is going to not necessarily to apply, but going to could potentially open the door for other signs in R1 districts. And then you're, as a board, are going to have to say, well, how is this different than that one? Because you are dealing with an R1 district.
Looking for trouble.
I agree. I mean, like we have the Homer Center for the Arts. They have a sign out front. They change the message by hand. It works great. The fire department does the same thing. They get that message out there. It works fine. I think that's more of the style of the village. Until they, develop a zoning code for that district, I think you really have to look at it like you do that, and then you're opening the door to other people saying, well, I want one too. They did it, why can't I? And I think that can open up a can of worms that we don't want to look at.
Can I just speak, or?
Technically, no.
I didn't want to be improper.
I appreciate that. I appreciate
And
that.
I think I mean, me personally, I don't want to see these things all over the Village of Homer. I don't, I think, the feel of the village is a small town feel and not a, a bright light, big city feel. And I don't think that that's what we're looking for here in the village. You let one person do it, everyone's gonna want to do it, and especially, he's the sign company, they're gonna go around, well, we did one over here, why don't you guys put one in? And, we did one over here, we got it in over here, why don't you guys do it? And I feel that could happen because, there's profit there for them, and I don't feel it's, where we should be going.
I'm just concerned that we should really have the update in place. I don't object as strongly as you in terms of what it is because it's obviously what it's on. So to be, if I were to vote, it would say, come back after we've got this in place.
I think I'm there too. We need the code correct here. I think they're a good idea.
And anything
about-
else that isn't up to date, they need to be whipping themselves to do.
I think they are getting whipped. There's a lot. This is a pretty old code book, so I think they're working. I know they're actively.
I know
working.
it's getting worked on currently. I don't know how long that's gonna take or.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I would kind of be more on the side of Dan. It's kind of a not in my backyard kind of feel for me. But at the same time, I've seen them. I think there's one that's on a bank like across from Lowe's. Is that the same kind?
There is one.
And that looks okay to me, but
Oh.
at the same time, I like it down there by Lowe's.
Yeah.
So
They are cost prohibitive, these signs are, and the perfect example is you put one in the Village Green 12 years ago. Since then, not one sign has gone in the village. Now,
Well, because
Yes.
the village people were really against it when it went up.
It's
That's
really
why.
1890 here. You gotta keep that.
no, I completely agree. If coming on this road out here, I'd agree with you, but this is one block from the end of the village on, a main highway.
And that's why I don't object per se.
okay, guys.
I just.
Yeah, we
I
gotta-
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Wrangle this, but I'm gonna get yelled at by John.
Regardless of where, if it's one block from the village line or if it's in the middle of the village, it's that zone, and those are the rules that we have to look at.
Yeah.
And that's important, I think.
Are you ready to do your balancing test?
Yeah, Joan, could you run through those questions for us, please?
Is Dan Egner going to take down the answers on a form that you need to sign?
I don't have the form in front of me, no, Joe.
I think I have a form. Like this, Joan? I'm sure you can't see that. We've never done that before. There is a record of a vote, never name. Were you going to start using these?
I can read the questions and you give the answers and they'll be in the minutes, but as far as the actual form goes, if you have one, you need to sign it, with the answers in it, so.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, this is the balancing test.
Joan, I hate to interrupt you. Just to be clear, what we do is we're going to need findings from you on all of these four points on this test. So the discussion and the actual analysis is very important to include all of that, which is why Joan she takes all the minutes for us and she's going to include your discussion, but more importantly, your findings based on what's in the record. So you guys should try to be comprehensive, both in your analysis and discussion, and then also in your conclusions.
Well, come to a conclusion of, your actual findings, so I can record it in the minutes.
Yep, exactly. Thanks, Joan, and sorry for the interruption.
Okay. First question. Will there be an undesirable change produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties? And you answer yes or no, and then give a reason.
So I'll vote first. I would say that yes, it would. I think it is changing the characteristics of the neighborhood. I mean, if I had
It can be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance. And
So
that's,
are we voting and explaining on each point? Or we,
yes,
Each person,
we haven't taken a vote on the first one yet.
no, I'm waiting for that, either yes or no.
Oh. Did you want to capture reasoning behind this at this time as well, Jim? Kind of the reasoning behind our vote? There's a place on here, on the form here.
First you answer yes or no, and then you give the reason for answering that way.
Okay, I would vote yes.
I vote yes as well.
read the question again.
Whether an undesirable change would be produced in the character of a neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties.
Oh. Yes,
No.
Mike is no,
Correct.
and Ruth, you're yes? Ruth?
I have a choice other than yes or no.
So again, these for an area variance, these answers aren't binding to approving or disapproving a variance. So these are just really trying to reason out and capture on the record our thought process as to why we voted one way or the other. So you can expand in your reasoning, but your vote is important, but it's not going to make or break
Not mine.
the end,
Oh, okay,
end result.
all right, then change my vote to no.
So you got 2 yeses and 2 nos. Okay, and the reason?
My reasoning would be that it's very far away from it. It is across the street and set back. I mean, there is a house. It's across from where this proposed sign would be. It's a new type of sign that we haven't seen before and we have no provisions for. And I think that it's a different feel to the village than what we have now, would be my reasoning.
My no is because 281 is increasingly commercial and it's at the edge of the village.
You go along with that, Mike?
Pretty much.
Okay. Number 2 is, can the benefit sought by the applicant be achieved by a feasible alternative to the variance?
I would say yes.
I would say yes.
Yes,
Yes.
All yes. And give me a reason.
I mean, there's signs in town that put up messages without this and they work perfectly fine.
So other signs are available that would be satisfactory?
Yeah,
Yeah, I could see that
Hmm.
not as good of an alternative for what they're trying to achieve, but a feasible alternative that,
In other words, we're saying unlighted.
well, there are lighted signs like the Tasty Freeze has a lighted sign, but just a different style.
Yeah.
Okay, so your answer there is there are other signs available that would be satisfactory.
Yeah, other signs, examples in the village that give messages, changing messages out.
Okay, number 3. Is the requested variance substantial?
I would say yes.
yes,
All yes?
yes.
And why is the variance substantial? What's the reason?
It's a new technology that we haven't adopted in the village.
And my reasoning is because the code hasn't been updated yet.
I kind of agree with that, the fact that the code isn't updated yet.
for it. So
Okay, so there's new technology, hasn't been used yet, and the code is not updated in the village yet.
Correct.
I'll make the English a little bit better.
These
Number
two-
4, will the variance have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood?
I mean, I would say yes.
How?
I would say the light pollution of it. I mean,
The light pollution.
just
okay.
to see that. I mean, I try and envision if I had that across the street from my house, I would think of that as not, I
What
would,
is it? Is?
it is at the edge of the village, but there is, and it's an R1 district.
Are you yeses or nos?
No, I'm a no.
Dan's actually yes.
You're all no?
No, Dan and Adam are yes.
And I guess I'm a no too. So 2 no's, 2 yeses.
Okay, so Ruth and Mike are no.
Correct.
Okay, you want to give a reasons, please?
Well, these lights go straight ahead, they don't span like these.
Right.
I didn't get that.
Because there's no shine factor, then there may be an aesthetic factor, but it's not glaring in anybody's eyes.
It'll glare if you look directly at them.
Yeah, but if you're in your kitchen,
But if you're in
your kitchen and I'm looking at it.
Adam, yes?
Yes.
Dan?
Yep.
What's your reason?
Just
The
the
glow.
the glow, if it's in your eyes or not, it is, I would consider that a distraction to my neighborhood if it was across the street.
Distraction to
Uh,
drivers, traffic? What do you want?
Traffic, the natural beauty of the landscape.
So it's the,
Aesthetics, yes, thank you.
Okay, number 5, which is the last one, is the alleged difficulty self-created?
I don't think I've ever answered no to this one in the area variance. Yeah, I would say yes.
Yes.
Read me the question again.
yes, read it.
Is the alleged difficulty self-created?
And what's the difficulty?
The reason why they're applying for any variance.
Okay. All right, then yes.
Mike? You want a maybe?
No, I just don't see where it's created any difficulty, but. Other than we don't have a code that covers it.
So you're saying no,
Correct.
and Ruth, is yours no?
No, mine's a yes.
Oh, yours is yes, okay.
So 3 yeses.
3 yes, 1 no. And your reasoning?
Because they chose to take this action.
Any other comments? For yes?
Actually, Joan, I've never, I don't know, I just said I don't think we're ever, I'm gonna change mine to a no. And the same reason as Mike. I don't think, because it's considered an R1 district, I don't think that there's any type of sign that they could use. So it is a difficulty created by our current law.
Yeah.
Oh, then.
But they also don't need the sign.
It's true. That's usually why I end up.
I mean, it's not like they're required to have the sign. It's their choice to put the sign up.
So you're saying no type of sign should be used because it's not in the code?
No, that they didn't have an option. If they were to put a sign up, that the restriction of the R1 zone, which they're being considered under, is, it was a unique situation where they're in a business 3 district that is now considered an R1 district. They did build in that district, so maybe you can chase your tail on this.
Yes.
Can that just be a no and just say it's the zoning?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the end of that.
Oh, we could discuss more, or someone could make a motion to.
I mean, I just don't think approving it is gonna be conducive to the R1 district of people saying, all right, they did it, I'm gonna do it. And there are many businesses in town that are in R1 districts. I mean, I have a home business at my house and what's gonna stop me from putting one out in front of my, you know what I mean? My neighbors aren't gonna want that. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, yeah, this is stuff.
And I'm kind of the same way, but even outside of the R1 discussion, I mean, I think it's something for the village to consider whether we want these types of signs here at all. So the precedent that it would set, and that I'm not comfortable with.
And also the public reaction to the one that was permitted
I hate
was
that.
very negative.
Yes.
So that's another thing that I consider when I'm thinking about this as
It was very
well.
negative back then, but it's accepted now.
Well, I mean, you don't know that. I mean, that's the
Well,
way
it's
people felt that.
It's there.
I still don't like it.
It's there, yeah, I agree.
I mean,
That's the way it looks.
like you said, I mean, the Center for the Arts and the fire department use signs that aren't LED changing lights are bright and they work just fine.
Along with Corey's.
Yeah, yeah.
As a member of the fire department, we're looking at those LED signs too, so I mean,
Yeah.
he mentioned it earlier that the grant money is available for.
Yeah,
this
but that's
stuff.
the only reason why. I mean, if you had to
Not
pay for it.
necessarily, not
Well, then why
necessarily.
does the fire
That
department?
sign that's over there gets plowed and pushed around, and if you walked over and looked at it, it's all bent up. So I mean, there's reason.
But it works.
It works
It's
every time
functional.
somebody takes the time to go put the letters on. it.
Yeah, it's not that I don't understand anybody's argument that it's a good thing or that they aren't that obtrusive.
The control of them.
But
There's good points to some of it too here, so.
my concern is that there's 4 people in a room that are potentially setting a precedent, and all of the feedback, we didn't have anybody from the village come out now. It's really only that one family across the house that knows about this directly.
And then they haven't said anything.
They haven't. But
They were notified, I'm assuming.
they would be just because they're so close to it. I think that's true.
Dante, were they notified?
I don't do the mailings personally. I think, is Dan on? Dan?
They're notified, yes, on the original application.
But this one affected so many people and they spoke up about it. This one, a lot of people don't even know that this discussion's going on. So my concern would be setting a precedent. We don't know. I can understand if other people have an opinion that's not the same as mine. And
Sure.
if that was the
Sure.
majority, then I could live with
You're
that.
entitled to your opinion.
Yeah, I get it.
I get it.
But that is my opinion, and I also have the discomfort of setting some sort of precedent through zoning action. rather
Yeah,
than-
you don't have the right zoning.
I have 2 questions. So if you deny this application as it is, can we reapply or can we say, hey, either we don't want the LED sign, we just want the structure and the sign there? Or is there an option to say, can we do the LED sign and like you said, change the message once a day? Are those even options?
Uh,
I think no matter what, they're gonna want a sign even if you deny, not allowing
Yeah,
the LEDs, you're still gonna want the sign.
I would have to defer to Dante about what would happen, what the next steps would be.
Okay,
Yes,
or is that a
Dante,
step now?
Dante, can they reapply once the code is in?
Yeah, a couple of things about the code process. That is not something that's going to be done, in days or weeks. It's more of a month-long process. They've been working on it. I can't say, it'll be here in 2 months or 6 months. I'm not sure the time frame, but it's not going to be next week.
No.
They can always reapply for a different type of sign. They would do the same process as before. They'd submit an application to the code enforcement officer, who would consider the signage. And then if denied, it would be and then appealed, it would come before you again. That's the procedure.
I'd also counsel that the sign structure itself could be approved, the structure of the sign, if there's no disagreement on that. But the LED nature of the sign could be pushed off or put towards the board of trustees to discuss at their meeting. So it's kind of a twofold thing that could happen, if that's something that the board wants to entertain.
I think we would like that, if that's even possible to do that now, and get it approved without the LED sign. And then we can always come back, or we'd have to talk to the customer and see if they want to come back or just go with the structure the way it sits without an LED sign. Which I don't know how they'll want to react to that, but it is an option.
Or should we just, we probably need to do some discussion of the sign itself. We kind of just focused on one aspect of it.
Yeah.
Okay, does any sign under R1, are all signs excluded under R1? In any shape or form?
I believe so, right?
Not any sign. There are some, but it's nothing, I don't think it's any sort of business sign. There's a residential identification, community event signs, temporary, non-limited advertisements, real estate signs. Home occupation signs, development signs, public school signs, government agency signs, integral parts of structures, monuments, and certain commemorative tablets, private traffic direction signs, national recognition service signs. It's nothing that is talking about commercial type signs.
So there's no point at this point
Yeah.
to do
That's
anything.
no point. I think I would caution if the board entertains just another council is that, down the street is a B2. You just mentioned the Burn Dairy sign earlier, someone mentioned it as far as a type of structure that's there, of which is obviously allowed use in those areas. So it is a village problem as far as the code, but B3s, that language in the code book needs updated. I think everyone is in agreement on that, and that will be forthcoming. Whether a particular LED sign will be allowed, I can't speak to that, but I would hazard to guess that in B3, some kind of commercial signage will be allowable. So in the future.
Dante is, so I kind of asked this question before, and I think that you cautioned me that our determination would be considered an R1 determination. Is there a way to word this that the structure or the non-LED portion of the sign could be allowed, but not considered an R1, or how does that?
Yeah, so I think I'm trying to figure out a good procedure forward to kind of proceed. At the minimum, I think we should, make the final determination under the area variance test, just because that's really what we're at right now. But as far as consideration of the sign in general, the problem with doing that now, do we know like the exact dimensions that, generally they're going to submit. What you could do is you could refer the matter to the Board of Trustees to update that particular, just that one minor code provision for it's the B3 or the industrial district to, in the meantime, before the entire code revisions are ready, to update that one section, which I think would be, something they'd want to consider. And then the applicant could resubmit after the new district rules are applied. Presumably, we'd be looking at, as Dan Egnor said, probably applying B2 standards to the B3 district. I don't know why we wouldn't, but that's for them to decide and discuss. And I've thought about it for all of about 4 minutes, so that would make sense, in industrial districts to have similar signs to a commercial district off the top of my head. But I just don't know if we have enough of a framework of the application minus the LEDs, the size of the sign. And I don't know if it's, ripe enough for a decision to, modify now. Because we would be taking out the LED aspect. Would you also be defining the size of it? Because there are specific, area, 2x6s, dimensions, that's the word I'm looking for each particular sign in each district. So those are, considerations now that I don't know if we have final answers to, or you guys have even thought about.
Okay,
So,
how about just-
yeah, please, because
The,
I'm a little confused on the way forward. So what's going on?
Well, just saying, could the ZBA just send the entire application to the Board of Trustees to discuss and or decide upon?
No, the ZBA is pretty clearly defined as the referral agency for denials of the sign permit from the CEO. So my thought is, if the Board of Trustees are ready to change that or look at changing that one particular, the B3 district, the industrial district, specifically to define the signs that are allowed there, that might be something we could do, prior to the code updates.
And just for the record, it's research and development. It's not-
Research and development, not industrial. Thank you. Yes. Yes. So please, Joan, pretend I just said exactly what Dan said instead of saying the wrong district as previous times. I don't, they can't just refer the Board of Trustees to make they're endowed by the Board of Trustees for these zoning appeals. So kicking the application of the Board of Trustees, that's not procedure.
Basically, we denied it.
Well, you would need a motion to deny it, and then we would take a vote.
Yeah.
But I think that's where the discussion has been leading to.
Should it be tabled until the new law goes into effect?
I don't know that tabling.
Do you have a time constraint?
There is a time constraint, and they've already considered all the factors under this specific thing. In court, sometimes you can deny something with or without prejudice, and I'm sure the Board of Zoning Appeals would be willing and ready to consider a new application. As soon as those districts are, not to speak for the board, but I'm pretty sure they would be. So I don't think this is something that the board would refuse to take up again once you have a different application and we have new rules. But I don't want to speak on behalf of the board for those considerations.
You need to make a decision on tonight's.
That's my point too. Yeah.
Do you want to make a motion? Joan, am I allowed to make motions, or are you going to slap my hand?
Pardon?
Is the chair allowed to make a motion, or should that come?
No, I prefer that you don't.
Okay.
You conduct the orchestra.
I make the motion. We deny it because of our zoning.
I second the motion.
Your motion would be to either grant, the area variance as requested, or deny the area variance as requested, and then you have a vote.
Deny.
You gonna make that motion, Mike,
Yes, I'll make the motion.
to deny the requested variance?
Yes. Because of our
And
zoning.
now you need a vote.
Need a second? Do you need a second in this
You
case?
need a second first, yes.
Yeah, I second the motion.
That's Dan,
Yes.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
4 ayes, Joan.
4 ayes. So it is denied.
So would we make a request to the trustees to update the zoning section for the signage?
Yeah, you can do that. And I would, you guys should accompany that request with some recommendations or things to consider, because you guys are the ones going to make these, decisions for sign appeals. So if there are considerations and specifications and things like that, those would always be welcome as well.
Yeah, so Joan, if I could make that request to them, but also include, I certainly can understand kind of mimicking a nearby business district for this research and development, but I would ask that they consider public opinion for something like the LED signs. I know just talking with people that it's not a slam dunk. Everybody loves the idea. So I think I was very uncomfortable making a decision here tonight that would set any precedent. And I think another room full of a small group of people should have the same concerns about what we want the village to look like. And so hopefully there would be some place for feedback on that idea.
Feedback from whom?
The public.
The village residents. I think this really is a change of the characteristics of the neighborhoods. I know 281 is somewhat separate from the houses, but there are houses that are along 281 as well.
Yeah, if you go north, like where Coffee Mania is gonna be putting their new place, there are houses right there, and then they're gonna, they could come to it and say, we want.
And they're getting closer to
And that's on the
Monday.
edge of the north end of the village, but there's.
They would hold a public hearing.
Well, let's get through the requests to the
Yeah.
village and see what they.
I agree.
So the board is taking that consideration from the county then to update the zoning, because I read that in the county.
Yeah,
Planning
absolutely.
board.
The village is actively updating the zoning code. Dante mentioned it's not a tomorrow thing, it's months.
Sure.
But it
I've
is,
seen about a
the
year.
wheels are turning.
The
Yeah.
wheels- the wheels are turning in, and certainly addressing this being considered a R1 version is going to be kind of straightforward. I'm setting up some sort of signage, but I think this is a bigger question.
Sure.
And believe me, I like to sit up here and say yes to everyone, and so I can appreciate what you do, and I hate being the guy that's saying not in my backyard, but on this point, I feel like I'm speaking for a lot of village residents. So I kind of want to stick to that. So I apologize. I'm sorry you guys didn't get the right answer tonight, but here we are.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And we got some meeting minute approvals. Joan, is that our next step?
The next thing is acknowledge, you have the Baldwin matter.
Yeah.
You just want to make a note that was withdrawn by the applicant.
Oh, okay. Do we don't really vote to deny or approve? Do we just note that it was withdrawn?
Note that it was withdrawn by the applicant.
Appeal 43 was withdrawn by the applicant. I noticed they stopped parking it there.
They did.
Shortly after the meeting. I've seen it once or twice when they just must be loading stuff up. though.
And you have minutes to approve.
Yep. I read it from there.
Yeah, I didn't see any issues.
March 24th.
You want to make the,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Sure.
I don't.
Let you guys make a little.
it is weird. So
The second.
I second it. Adam seconds it. We've gone through this before when we had members leave the board and then members come onto the board. You can vote yes or no to approve this. It's strange, but, all in favor? Aye.
And you need a motion to adjourn if you're finished.
I'll second the motion.
Who made the motion?
Mike made the
Mike made
motion,
it.
Mike
He's good at motions.
and Dan.
I like
Dan
that.
seconded, all in favor?
Uh,
Aye.
Mike, what do you do with all your free time? now?
Nobody ever objects to adjournment.
I got plenty. I got the little house, I got the fire department, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You hunger fish?
Thank you very much.
Bye,
Thank you,
Joe.
John. Have a great night. Thank you, Dante.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And my offer's open to the new board members if they ever want to talk after they get that kind of cheat sheet primer. Happy to go over things with you once you get a chance to settle in and go over that. There's also some great
Training.
training. Yeah, there's also some great training. They do video training, and there's probably some in-person ones that are starting up now too available. It is not rocket science, but it is kind of a different language. So, you know, as Adam and Dan have been on the board for a while, and myself included, I had a little bit of a longer version of the cheat sheet up tonight as well, just because I don't know everything either and have to refer to the code and that guidance. So once you guys get settled in, I'm happy to go over anything with you guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Dante.
Good night.
Night.
Do you salmon fish? You still have fish up there?
Oh, I have a blast up there.
Yeah.
September and October. Leave my camper right up at Selkirk.
Oh, nice. So I went to school at Potsdam State, and my good friend's father owned the Steelhead Lodge while we were in college. Earl Penny, I don't know if you know Earl.
I've heard the name.
So we used to go up there all the time, and
Oh, man.
we'd either sleep in the parking lot or really.
I don't usually, I mean, I'll monkey around the salmon, but there's too many crazy
Yeah,
fishermen, you know.
I have, that's what I was gonna say. I have
So
some
after
different salmons.
Columbus Day, you know, those guys are all out of there.
Yeah,
You know, so October is great. The end
Yeah.
of October is great up there.
so a group of us
So
still,
wide,
there's
We're done.
10 of us that go up the
We're
first
still on.
week in,
You can unlive us,
first week
Dan.
in November. We do steelhead
Still
fish
have
out there, and we
Talk
stay
about
up there
Appeal
for
493.
4
We're
nights.
done.
drink and
blast.
eat,
Oh,
catch
yeah.
fish.
Yeah, we went through Appeal 493.
Okay, sorry.
Applicant
Yeah,
has
it's
been
so
withdrawn. They
much fun, so.
approved the
I mean,
minutes.
it's not just. a
And they
series of
adjourned.